Did you know there's a mysterious showdown over Moses' body that could change everything we know about faith? It's not something we talk about every day, but it's a fascinating and powerful moment in the Bible. In the book of Jude, we find a strange and surprising story of an argument between Michael the Archangel and Satan. This battle wasn't over anything ordinary. It was over the body of Moses, the man who led the Israelites out of Egypt and received God's law. So who exactly are the key players in this drama? Michael the Archangel is one of the most powerful angels in the Bible. He is often shown as a warrior and protector, especially in spiritual battles. In fact, Michael is called the Archangel, which means he's the chief of all angels. In the Bible, he plays a key role in fighting evil and standing up for God's people. On the other side of the argument is Satan, the fallen angel who became God's enemy. Satan is known as the accuser and is always trying to oppose God's plans. He's the one who tempted Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden, and his goal has always been to lead people away from God. In this story, Satan wants to claim Moses' body for himself, but Michael won't let him. This strange argument is mentioned in Jude 1:9, which says, "But Michael the Archangel, when he disputed with the devil and argued about the body of Moses, did not dare pronounce against him a railing judgment, but said, 'The Lord rebuke you.'" That's all we get about the dispute, but it's enough to spark a lot of questions. Why were they fighting over Moses' body? What does this story tell us about the unseen spiritual battle happening around us? And what does it mean for our understanding of life, death, and the afterlife? This brief yet mysterious story gives us a glimpse into the ongoing spiritual warfare that is part of our Christian faith, reminding us that there is so much happening beyond what we can see. In the Bible, Jude 1:9 gives us a surprising glimpse into a heavenly dispute. It says, "But Michael the Archangel, when he disputed with the devil and argued about the body of Moses." This verse tells us about a strange argument between Michael, the Archangel, and Satan. But what are they really arguing about? First, let's understand where this passage comes from. The book of Jude is a short letter at the end of the New Testament, right before Revelation. It's a powerful letter that warns Christians to stay true to their faith and fight against false teachings. It only has one chapter, but it contains important lessons about the spiritual battles that happen beyond what we can see. Jude 1:9 is one of the most mysterious verses in the Bible because it mentions an argument about the body of Moses, but we don't get many details. So who is Moses, and why does his body matter so much? Moses is one of the most important figures in the Bible. He was chosen by God to lead the Israelites out of slavery in Egypt, and he received the 10 Commandments on Mount Sinai. Moses was a prophet, the lawgiver, and a leader for God's people. His life and actions set the stage for the rest of the Bible. Now let's talk about Moses' death. According to Deuteronomy 34:5-7, Moses died at the age of 120. God told him to go up to a mountain called Mount Nebo, where he could see the promised land, but he would not enter it. The Bible says that Moses died there, and God himself buried him in a valley in the land of Moab, but no one knows the exact place of his grave. The fact that God buried Moses instead of allowing someone else to do it is unusual and adds mystery to Moses' death. The mystery of Moses' burial is one of the reasons why this dispute between Michael and Satan is so interesting. Why would Satan care about Moses' body? Why was it so important for Michael to protect it? This argument reveals something deeper about spiritual warfare and the afterlife. It shows us that even in death, Moses was part of God's bigger plan, and there were forces trying to keep his body from being honored properly. This passage reminds us that even the most powerful figures in the Bible, like Moses, are involved in a spiritual struggle that goes beyond this world. Michael the Archangel is one of the most important angels in the Bible. The name Michael means, "who is like God," and he is described as a powerful warrior and protector. In many parts of the Bible, Michael is shown fighting against evil forces and defending God's people. His main role is to stand against the enemies of God, and he is often seen leading armies of angels in battle. One of his key appearances is in Daniel 10:13, where he helps the prophet Daniel by fighting against the forces of evil. In Revelation 12:7, Michael leads an army of angels in a battle against Satan and his followers, defeating them and casting them out of heaven. Satan, on the other hand, is the opposite of Michael. He was once a high-ranking angel but fell from grace because of his pride and rebellion against God. The Bible tells us that Satan wanted to be like God and tried to overthrow him. This led to his downfall. Isaiah 14:12, 15, and Ezekiel 28:12-19 describe Satan's fall from heaven, where he was cast down to earth for his pride and disobedience. Satan is also known as the accuser because he tries to accuse and condemn people before God. In the book of Job 1:6-12, Satan appears before God, accusing Job of only being faithful because he was blessed. He challenges Job's loyalty, showing his role as the enemy of God's people. Throughout the Bible, Satan's goal is to rebel against God's will, tempt people into sin, and try to destroy God's plans. While Michael fights for God's people, Satan fights against them, making their battle over Moses' body a powerful symbol of the ongoing spiritual struggle between good and evil. The dispute between Michael the Archangel and Satan over Moses' body is a fascinating and mysterious moment in the Bible. But why would Satan be interested in Moses' body? One possible reason is that Satan often tries to take control of anything that is holy or sacred. Moses was a great prophet and leader who played a key role in God's plan for his people. His body, therefore, was considered sacred and important in God's plan. Satan, being the enemy of God, would have wanted to corrupt or defile it in some way to dishonor Moses and God's work through him. Another reason Satan may have contested Moses' body is to prevent the proper honoring of Moses. God had buried Moses himself in an undisclosed location, keeping it secret so that no one could turn his grave into a place of worship. If Satan could take control of the body, he could lead people into idolatry, turning Moses' grave into a false place of worship instead of allowing the focus to remain on God. Michael, as God's appointed protector, intervened to prevent Satan from taking Moses' body. Michael's role as an archangel is to fight for God's will and protect holy things. He was acting on God's behalf to make sure that Moses' body was treated with the respect and honor it deserved. The preservation of Moses' body in God's will was important because it symbolized God's control over life and death, as well as his ongoing plan for his people. This dispute also highlights the spiritual significance of Moses' body. It wasn't just about the body itself. It was about the honor of God's work through Moses. By protecting Moses' body, Michael ensured that God's plan would continue to unfold as intended, without interference from Satan. The dispute between Michael and Satan over Moses' body reveals a lot about the nature of spiritual warfare. Spiritual warfare is the ongoing battle between good and evil, a battle that happens in the unseen world around us. In this conflict, Michael represents God's power and protection, while Satan represents opposition to God's will. Michael fights to carry out God's purposes, while Satan tries to stop them. This battle reminds us that life is more than what we can see, and there is an ongoing fight for what is holy and good. One key point the dispute highlights is God's sovereignty, or complete control, over life, death, and the afterlife. God decides who lives and who dies, and how things unfold after death. Satan may try to interfere, but in the end, it is God's will that prevails. This is especially true when it comes to Moses' death. God decided where Moses would die and who would bury him. This shows that death is not in the hands of Satan, but in God's hands alone. The fact that Moses' body was kept hidden also teaches us something about God's control over death. By keeping Moses' grave secret, God made sure that people wouldn't turn it into a place of worship or idolize Moses. God's decision to keep Moses' body hidden reflects his desire to direct people's focus back to him, not to human figures. This dispute also relates to Christian teachings on resurrection and judgment. It reminds us that after death, God's plan continues, and that the final judgment belongs to God alone. Just as Moses' body was protected by God, believers trust that God will preserve and raise them in the resurrection at the end of time, just as he promises. The dispute between Michael and Satan over Moses' body teaches Christians some important lessons that we can apply to our lives today. One of the key lessons is the importance of God's sovereignty and protection. Just as God was in control of Moses' life and death, he is also in control of our lives. This reminds us that no matter what happens in life, we can trust that God is always in charge. Even when we face difficult or confusing situations, we can have peace knowing that God is protecting us and guiding us. Another lesson from this dispute is the encouragement to trust in God's plan for life and death. Moses' death was part of God's plan, and he made sure everything happened according to his will. As Christians, we can trust that God has a purpose for our lives, and he is in control of every moment, even our last breath. When we face loss or death, we don't have to fear because we know that God is in charge of what comes after. The dispute also shows us that there is an ongoing spiritual battle between good and evil. Satan is still trying to stop God's plan and lead people away from him. As believers, we are part of this battle every day. We face temptations, challenges, and struggles, but just like Michael fought for Moses, we have God on our side to help us stand strong against evil. Finally, we can apply these lessons to our own spiritual lives by remembering to rely on God's protection and trust in his plan. We can face our challenges with confidence, knowing that God is in control, and he will help us fight the spiritual battles we face each day. By putting our trust in him, we can live with peace and courage, no matter what comes our way. In today's video, we explored the mysterious dispute between Michael the Archangel and Satan over the body of Moses. We learned that Michael represents God's protection and sovereignty, while Satan tries to oppose God's will. The dispute shows us that there is an ongoing spiritual battle between good and evil, and it reminds us of God's control over life, death, and the afterlife. We also saw that Moses' body was sacred, and God's plan for it needed to be carried out without interference. As you reflect on the theological significance of this dispute, think about how it reveals the nature of spiritual warfare, God's sovereignty, and his control over life and death. It's a reminder that we are all part of a larger story, and we can trust God to guide us through every battle we face. What do you think the dispute over Moses' body teaches us about God's control over our lives and the spiritual battles we face today? I'd love to hear your thoughts, so feel free to share your reflections in the comments below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video with others. Thanks for watching.